And that concludes all of the 5x5 conversations. I've just finished recording the 5th conversation with Alison, who is in her camper van right this minute when we're recording, up in the northeast of Scotland. So she had good connection, but was on her phone, so she didn't have her camera on. So, except for a little while in the beginning. So, we've been talking a lot about Scotland, which is a place that I am drawn to. It's a place that I want to visit in a flanner type way, not a touristy type way. And you'll get more kind of meat on that bone if you listen. But we also bring up a really cool question that I got from a coaching session last week, which is a question from, I think her name is Robin Wall Kimmerer. It might not be, but she wrote Braiding Sweetgrass, a book that I've yet to read. But in it, she says that when you're asked, how are you? Or when you ask yourself, how are you? You can answer it from 4 places: mind, body, emotion, and spirit, which I just think is lovely, which I did in that call. And it opens up some lovely things. So join me and Alison for our 5th conversation. Hi.
Hello. I'm just getting comfortable. I'm actually parked on a slope.
Parked on a slope in person or a car?
In my van. I'm in my van. I just got up the hill.
Okay, cool.
And I'll show you that I'm here. I don't know what I look like because I've been in a van for days.
Hi. Gorgeous as ever.
Oh, too sweet. But I will turn it off because I can't hold it up.
No, I can understand that.
But it's nice to see you. It's been a while.
It's been a long while.
And it looks like there's something wild going on with your hair. But it's actually the plant behind you. It was perfectly aligned. It's perfect.
Yep. It kind of suits how I feel at the moment. I've had one of those weeks where, I've been very flexible saying yes to most everything. So I've had jam-packed days, but also jam-packed evenings. I've had like 1 or 2 things every evening too.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's been a busy week.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that you're the first person I've spoken to today, but you're not, because on my walk on the beach where there was nobody, there was then a honeymooning couple. So I was talking to the young man, and he said, "Oh, my girlfriend." "Oh no, my wife." And then she came over and said, "Yeah, we're on our honeymoon." And I said, "Oh, he's just getting used to the fact that you're married."
It is a bit of a shift.
Yeah, they only got married 4 days ago. So.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
So tell me where you are.
I'm in the north of Scotland, and I don't actually know where I am. I'll need to find a map. So I'm finding a map. I'm near that amazing beach. That's Murdoch.
The one that you sent a picture of?
Sent a picture of.
Mm-hmm.
Because I found Murdoch he's now making a fuss. He's meant to go to sleep now. That's interesting. I don't know where I am. Yeah, so I have an app that's called, what's it called? Search for Sites. And it has campsites and other places where you can stay the night. And so I sort of look on there for sort of the direction I'm heading. And there was this one that's near a beach. And there's lots that when you read the reviews, it says signs saying no overnight parking. So you can't stay overnight anymore. But this one you can. And there's a sort of log cabin bothy thing that's got a toilet and an honesty box, which is such a good idea, because I'm thinking they're missing a trick when they tell people they can't park overnight, rather than saying, yeah, give us a donation for our local wildlife conservation or
So what's
something.
an honesty box? Is it put some money here for us and please don't steal it from us?
Yeah, that's the idea. So give a donation, and yeah. And because there was a campsite that I stayed on, which is also by a beach, a few days ago, which had no facilities at all. It was just right next to this another amazing beach, but the weather was totally wild, and that was £10 a night in the honesty box, and so yeah, it relies on trust, and I
Which
like
is a lovely
that
thing. Yeah.
And I think, and there's other places I've stayed where I haven't had to pay, but I would have willingly paid some money, because there was a campsite. The most expensive campsite I've stayed on was £22 a night, and thinking that's I couldn't use the facilities because Murdoch gets upset if I leave him in the van if I'm going for anything other than the supermarket. He seems to recognise the supermarket car park, so he'll sit quietly for that.
Okay.
But otherwise, he makes a big fuss. And on a campsite, I don't want to be leaving a barking dog in a van. So I was paying £22 a night to be able to empty my toilet and fill up with water. And then, yeah, there's other places that have just been amazing. And yeah, so I was thinking, oh, I'd like to work for the Highlands Tourist Board and find ways of engaging with people and stuff.
Well,
I was feeling
there.
Yeah, I was feeling
Reach
quite
out to them.
inspired. But I have noticed what a grumpy old moo I can be when there are so many big white motorhomes. Just sometimes it's like every vehicle that's passing or coming the other way is a large white motorhome. And
the really big ones.
Yeah, they're just like I don't know. Do you have Luton vans?
I don't know.
No, but they're sort of big and boxy and they're tall and they're wide and they long. And there's always a couple, a heterosexual couple driving them, and the man is driving and the woman isn't.
Precisely.
And the thing, the thing I noticed this morning as I was driving, I was just noticing all my irritations, and there was this irritation that when because there's most of the roads are single track roads with passing places, so there's this constant sort of manoeuvring and pulling over into a passing place and let people pass, and so there's a lot of hand waving and acknowledgement, which is really nice. And it's like, oh, there's this connection that you're acknowledging the other person. But what really irritated me was all of these couples that both the driver and the passenger are waving their hand at me. And I just got annoyed. It's like, just don't do that. Like, who's driving? Who's driving? You don't need to film it. No. So I'm so curious about. Oh, that's interesting. Why does that push my buttons?
Yeah. So you have been in Scotland now for what? See, a month?
A month.
Longer?
29. Is it the 30th today?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 29 days. I arrived.
Oh, wow.
Arrived on the 2nd of September, and I've I've travelled north, mainly around the coast.
For 29 days?
For 29 days. And some days I haven't gone anywhere much. I've just stayed put for a couple of days. And other days I've driven for a few hours. But looking at where I've plotted it on the map,
Mm-hmm.
it's a sort of zigzaggy. It's like I've tacked north,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm now the furthest east that I've been. Yeah, because I'm sort of on the way to John O'Groats, and the last little top little bit of the northeast of Scotland. And I've never ever been up here before, and it's I'm continually speechless. That's it's sort of the landscape and just walking on this beach so the car park is really high up on enormous sand dunes that are sort of covered in grass and bracken, but they're sand. And it just sort of looked like this beautiful beach, but it's really windy at the top. And I was trying to work out whether I had time to walk down there and walk back up, and I'm so pleased that I did, because once I dropped down behind the sand dunes, the wind is actually an offshore wind today, so it's really sheltered on the beach, and it is just, I don't know, it just reminded me of Indonesian beaches in the what are they called? The Gili Islands. The Gili Islands, is that what they're called?
I have no clue. You're challenging my geographical skills here.
Yeah, there's three little
Totally.
islands off. Yes, the Gili Islands. Gili Air was the one I stayed on, which tiny little islands off the coast of Indonesia, off the coast of Lombok. And lots of people, well, they used to, I don't know what they do anymore, but they used to go from Bali to the Gili Islands. And they, just sort of tropical paradise. But then walking down to this beach, even though it's quite cold, but being out of the wind,
temperatures.
But the sand, it's like golden sand, and the sea has a sort of turquoisey tint to it, and there was no footsteps on the sand. It was like nobody's been here. Yeah, it's just amazing, and everywhere I go, there's something different, and I think the weather helps because it's constantly changing. So it's not like there's bright blue skies all the time. It's like 1 minute there's blue sky, and then there's cloudy sky, and then there's grey sky, and then there's black sky, and then there's rain and wind, and the way the light changes, and then seeing that beautiful thing where the sunlight sort of chases across the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can see the rays.
Yeah. And so many rainbows. I've never seen so many rainbows. And the sort of the most vivid, brightest, biggest rainbows. It's
Yeah, because you've been sending me pictures from your journeys, and I asked you today if you were all gorgeous out, but you said you weren't, and I'm happy that you're doing this, because even though I don't want to travel, and I still don't want to travel, I still have kind of the one thing that I do want to do is go to Scotland and just be. I don't know that I want to drive, but maybe a combination of trains and bus and walking and renting a car or a bike, or I don't know.
because as I travel round, I'm still trying to work out what's going on with me, and it feels like, no, it is. I am exploring, and there's places that I think, I'd like to stay here and stop here, and I could spend a week or a month here. But it's almost, it feels as if I'm doing a sort of reconnaissance mission. Like, right, let's get an overview of Scotland. and I'm fascinated by the little places that I come across. And there was somewhere that I ended up today at the end of a dead end lane that was miles and miles long, and this whole load of houses at the end. And like, well, who lives here? What do they do? They're not all farmers. And yeah, it's fascinating. And what I also noticed was that if I've plotted my route on the map, the thought of going from where I was in Oxfordshire up to the tip of Scotland was just overwhelming. But because I haven't had a plan other than I was going to Scotland, and then I got here and realised it was big, and I've just followed my nose, and bit by bit I've explored the next bit, and I've now got less than 2 weeks before I need to be back in England.
That's and right. You have a deadline to speak of.
Deadline, yeah. So
we shouldn't call it deadline. That's the old word. You have a new starting point, somewhere to be.
Somewhere to be, yes. Yeah. And so it feels different, that there's a limitation where I didn't feel a limitation before. It felt unlimited and free. And now I'm beginning to like, well, can I just keep going with what I'm doing, but holding the intention that I will be on my way back? Or do I break with tradition and make a plan? And I don't know, it would be quite challenging for me to make a plan. So I'm wondering whether that would be something to do.
Why would that be challenging?
I haven't made a plan for a long time. And
so what do you mean with plan? Because I'm guessing someone who's listening is going, but what do you mean? You're in Scotland. You made a plan to go to Scotland.
yeah, and that was the plan. I'm going to Scotland in my camper van.
Yeah.
And that was it. And even every day I wake up and I don't have a plan of what I'm going to do.
So you mean a detailed plan?
Detailed plan.
I am going to these and these places, and I will be at that place at this time of next week.
Yes, and I've met people who have their whole itinerary planned out, and they've got all their campsites booked, and so they know where they have to be. But the thought of having a campsite booked and knowing I have to be there in 3 days' time fills me with horror, which I think is probably an interesting microcosm of the macrocosm of my life.
Yeah.
That I don't want to miss any sort of opportunity in the moment, because
is that it? Is it the fear that you might lose an opportunity? It's not the feeling that it feels, I don't know, constricting?
Well, I think they go together, don't they? That by having...
Well, maybe there are two sides to a coin, because they're quite different in feeling. It's like the missing of opportunities has this, oh, I want this. I want the openness. I want the possibilities, endless. Whereas the no, I don't want to be is like that's closing. Which I guess the closing is what makes that longing for the openness, perhaps. But
yes, so it is. I don't want the shutting down, but then I know by having something, it doesn't mean other things are shut down. But there is this sense that I have that I want the freedom for spontaneity. But I don't know. I'm really curious about where that stops, because it's been my life for 3 years that I refuse to be committed to something. And I know
to
there's
something external.
So there is this whole inner thing that's going on, which seems to be very much what this Scottish adventure is all about. My own, I don't know whether it's an understanding of myself and knowing what it is that I want, and experimenting with what I do, sort of pushing my boundaries or not pushing my boundaries.
But it's so interesting to hear you say it as if you are, what did you say? You said you were not committing. Was that the word? You weren't committing to external things. Which perhaps in a sense is you, like making the ultimate commitment to you.
Oh.
Right? I mean, because it's like you don't do it the easy way, do you? I mean, I know that by now. But I mean, it is kind of easier to follow the external, like we've spoken about over and over again. This, you should have a house or an apartment, and you need to be married and have kids and a dog and a car and this and a that and a full-time job and tend to your mother and father and yada, 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 whatever you're supposed to. But if you don't, I mean, you do have a car and a dog, but that's kind of it. Then there's you. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. And it is, I was just getting quotes to renew my car insurance. And that's interesting when it comes to occupation, that I don't fit in any of their boxes. And even if I said I was a life coach, there's no box for that. And
is there a box for reconnaisseur? Would that be the word? If you're on a reconnaissance mission, are you a reconnaisseur?
oh, we ended up with something creative. I think he put me down as artist in the end, but it was one of those moments when I thought, well, I wish I just had a job that I could just say, yes, I'm a teacher. And then they go, tick, teacher.
So what stops you from doing that? Could you just do that? Could you just say, I'm a teacher? Does it matter? I mean, really? Why do they need to? They need to know if you're like a race car driver or a sky jumper or whatever it's called, right? Isn't that? But maybe not in a car. It's like,
yeah, they have different risk levels depending on your occupation. So there's.
Maybe they could be a little bit like looser in their categories, because what they really want to know, are you risk averse or prone to risk? You know, do you seek it out, or do you, physical risk? Are you one of those persons who goes, oh, I'm going to take you over a big white car in this tiny Scottish road, I don't care, right? Or no, I'll very kindly get in this little pocket so that they can pass without problems.
It's interesting how people get put in boxes by labels, isn't it? But I was just thinking, maybe I do just say I'm a teacher. Maybe that is what I do. I'm in the sort of a big sensible word that I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
How did we get onto car insurance?
Committing to you and not doing the shoulds. I mean, you said, well, yeah, I don't know. We meander and we arrive somewhere and then we take off again. Isn't that how it goes?
Yeah. And that's what I've been up to, meandering and seeing where it goes. And I had the most fascinating encounter with a couple of men. That I think it was on Sunday, I was walking on the little beach by the campsite I was staying at and paddling in the sea. And then a couple of men came down to the beach, and one of them took his shoes and socks off, and so we started talking about paddling and having a sort of teasing his friend that he wasn't brave enough to paddle, but he said he was going to go skinny dipping later. And then we just had really lovely conversation about parents and all sorts of things. And they were staying in a cottage in somewhere nearby in Ullapool for a week, which was about, I don't know, it was about an hour's drive away from where I was staying. And then on Tuesday, I'd driven a long way around the coast, and I was about 30 miles away from the campsite. And I stopped at a viewpoint that was overlooking the sea, and it was quite a busy car park with lots of cars coming and going. And then I had a Zoom call, and I was sat in my van on the Zoom call, and the weather suddenly changed, and the rain was thundering in my van, and the wind was blowing. And then as I was talking on this Zoom call, a man came round the back of my van and leant against it. And I was like, what? So there's a man leaning on my van. And then I saw another man, and they both got bicycles. And I thought, God, he looks really familiar. And then I thought, oh.
It's there. Oh, you muted yourself.
And
there you go. It was them?
And it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and they'd cycled 25 miles and just happened to end up leaning on my van to shelter from the rain. So we had another lovely conversation. And yeah, it just was like, what are the chances of that happening?
Well, I think it's like I'm reminded about, I think it's Taleb who writes in Anti-Fragile about the difference between being a tourist and a flaneur. And I think we've spoken about this too sometime. But flaneur in Swedish is called flanera, French for walking about, meandering around.
Oh, right.
Which is this totally different way of being in the world than if you're a tourist, because then you have kind of the tick-offs and you know that you need to be at that camping site in 3 days, and so we will do this castle and that hilltop and this river and that bridge on the way there, yada yada. You know, it's like, and I was thinking when you said you don't have a plan, and I'm going, yes, you do have a plan. You're in Scotland. That's a plan, you know. And you kind of have, you know, the basics. It's like, well, you need to park your van someplace so that you can sleep at night. And now and again, you need to fill up with food and gas and water and empty the little portaloo or whatever it is you have, right?
Yeah.
But that's about it. And I was thinking that isn't that probably what has been the way of humans, but also what's been the way of most living things for, you know, not even millennia, for millions of years? Isn't it that is more, this is how we live? We, you know, it's like, oh, I feel like an apple. I know there's an apple tree over there. Maybe I'll go see if there is an apple, right? And you come across something or someone on the way, and, you know, life kind of unfolds rather than this planning, which seems to be a modern invention.
Yeah. And just those the basic needs of what is it that what is it that I want now, or what is it that I need, and the encounters that happen without the restriction of time. Because I was thinking, if I'd arranged to meet these men in that car park, there's no way we could have managed to have pinned down a time when we'd be in that car park 2 days later.
Brilliant. There's that synchronicity too, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, and that kind of the whole thing of synchronicity or is for me, it is that allowance, it is that evolving kind of allowance of life. And I have a sense that it's always there. But if you're not open to it, if you're not, it's like the more you are in your plan, the less you are able to even see possible synchronistic events or things like happening, because you know what the next step is, right?
Yes. Yeah, so it's like your blinkers are on because your focus is narrowed on the plan.
Yeah.
So your peripheral vision is lost.
Yeah.
And that's where that's where sort of the magic and excitement happens, and the possibilities of unexpected things. But I was thinking about the stories that we tell ourselves, and the sort of based on the conditioning, and whether it's education or society or family or and that the idea of a single female wild camping in the middle of nowhere alone, like there's this whole lot of stuff going on in my head around that it's not safe, women aren't safe, and it's a huge message in the media in the UK at the moment that women are not safe.
Yeah, there was some murder of some kind. Somebody, a young lady, wasn't that it?
A young teacher was murdered in London. But and just realize it's like noticing last night that it took me a while to decide where I was going to stop. And then even when I'd chosen the spot, I was noticing my anxiety about it. Like, is this okay? And then I could hear the stories about the bogeyman, and it just all this horror that I was like, no, I'm going to stay here because this is the most beautiful location, and I'm going to be able to see the stars tonight. And I don't want to be on a campsite like a car park. I want to be alone in nature. But there was this sort of dialogue going on about, is this okay or is this not okay? And and I haven't heard of any women in camper vans being attacked or murdered in Scotland, but there's still this sort of powerful message that a woman on her own is not safe.
And it is so detrimental. And I mean, as horrible as it is that a young teacher was murdered in London, how many people live in the UK? 80 million? No? Yes? No, you're not that many. 55? What are you?
60 something.
60 something. And so let's say round about half of those are women, right?
Yeah.
It's like that means there's like 29,999,999 people not dying, not being murdered.
Yeah. And and then there's the other murders that you don't hear about. There was a figure recently about how something like 3 or 4 women a week are killed, murdered by their partners.
Yeah. You don't have partners, you're safe.
Yeah. I've got a wild dog.
You have got a wild dog, but he doesn't look like the murdering kind to me.
No, he might lick me.
But I mean, it is as I don't know. It's so uncomfortable for me how fear is so ever present and sort of pushed out and communicated and blasted and plastered all over. It's like, it's just, no. I go, no, I don't want that. It's not, I mean, there's a logical, rational, reasonable, natural fear of heights and of fires and of spiders. And, it's like there's things that it's built into us that we we should be afraid of some things. But all of this other stuff, why? Why do we? And I can talk about conspiracy theory, but I don't want to live like that. And I've chosen not to live like that. I don't want to live like that. I don't live like that. And I discover myself now and again when I fall into it, when I am walking in the park at night alone, or when I am biking across town in the middle of the night alone, and there's somebody coming behind me, or those things. I can pick up on, here comes that fear. And it's the same type of fear that I picked up on when I had COVID. 8th day, when my lungs all of a sudden kind of stopped a third of the way down, it felt like, and I had a hard time breathing. The same type of fear just poured into my system, coming from all of the articles, all of the pods, all of the news flashes and press releases and restrictions here and there and this and that and the other thing, and numbers of how many people are in the hospital and dying and everything. It just hits me, and I'm happy that I felt it. And I wasn't afraid to feel it. And I could also see I'm feeling at least partly, and I would say a majority, a major part of that fear was coming from external factors rather than I can't breathe, because I could breathe. I had difficulty breathing, but I could still breathe without any problems. And I was lying in bed. I didn't have to, it's like chill. So it's the same. Here's this, women aren't safe. Women aren't safe. It's like, come on, you're in the most gorgeous place on the planet. It's like, enjoy it.
It's just like the information that we're we're fed, like the information that you'd been gathering about COVID was what was giving you the fear, not the physical
the
sensation.
experience.
It
Yeah.
was, and the meaning, I suppose, the meaning that we're then attaching to this. So your feeling of not being able to get a breath was then linking into all the information about COVID and not being able to breathe and dying.
Precisely.
Because it feels so sad that our lives are limited by fear.
Yeah. Or that we are limiting our lives based on fear.
Yes.
It is an active part.
Yeah, and that that's what hit me yesterday, that it's always a choice.
Yes.
That we have a choice. So I was giving myself a hard time the other day because I'm still wandering around, and there's a sort of this shoulding voice. I should know what I'm doing by now. And then when I let go of that, it's like, no, in this moment, everything, what more could I ask for in this moment? And then there'll be another moment and another moment. And all of the moments in the last 3 years have been moments. And my life will continue to have moments in the present. And if I get all worried and anxious and trying to, I don't know, make it something, then I'm no longer being present.
No.
And
when you are anxious, I would say you aren't present. I mean, anxiety to me is me not being here. Right? It is me being in some type of imaginary what might happen if aspect, and not where am I here? What's the
it's a sort of a future thing, isn't it? Anxiety about what might happen, or
what might happen.
Yeah.
What might not happen. What if this? What if that not?
Or
Which
what's
is
going
interesting.
to happen with all this fear.
I am going to find a thingamajig. I had a coaching session on Friday. So there's a question from what's her name? Braiding Sweetgrass. Robin Wall Kimmerer or something, where you can ask the question, how are you, from 4 places: mind, body, emotion, and spirit.
Right.
Which just, we played with that. And it was just interesting to see what happens there, because what happens is I can't answer how am I from these 4 aspects without grounding myself, without presencing myself, without really like, okay, here I am.
Mm.
And I'm guessing that can be used as a tool to bring me back here. if I'm off in the future, anxious about this or that, or when I will be killed by some murderer coming along the road in the northern part of Scotland. Just bringing it back.
Yeah.
And it's it makes me, when I think of you up there in Scotland, and you need to be somewhere in the UK on the whatever in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And you're still, even though you're way up north and Scotland is bigger than, it's big, it's still a tiny island you're on, and comparatively. What if you were, I mean, I'm not saying you should, but if you were to turn around now and drive back to the UK where you need to be, how long does that take? It can't be that many hours.
No, it must be. I know it's 8 hours from where I was before, so it's in 2 days I could be back where I need to be.
Yeah, precisely. So it's like, why do you need a plan? You're 2 days away. So if you're not just 1 day away when, I need to be there in 2 days, well, then where the nose is headed. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't need a plan.
No, and then you have what I think I hear you do. You have this possibility, the opportunity to wake up in the morning, check in. How am I? Mind, body, emotion, and spirit. Where's the nose taking me today? Nowhere. Or I want to drive there. Or I want to go down to the ocean. Or whatever. Whatever wants to come. It's like, let it, for crying out loud. That's how we're supposed to live. If why don't we shoot ourselves into that? We're so good at shooting ourselves, but we shoot ourselves in all of these ways that kind of make us feel small and burdened and hemmed in and everything. Why is the shooting that way?
Because then there's the little voice that's like, well, who are you to be doing this? There's people going to work. There's people getting on with their lives, and you're just floating around.
You're living, though.
And it is, it's a choice that I'm making every day. I'm making a choice about how I live, and I could choose. In theory, I could choose to go back to being conventional and having my own home and a job, but yeah, even saying it, I feel this sort of constriction in my body, in my gut, that ooh, no, I want to keep choosing, and maybe there will be a time when I choose those things,
which is
but at the
fine.
moment I'm able I'm able to do this. And I was thinking, as part of the challenge of having ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, and it's like, well, God, that's bonkers, going on a road trip. And I'm learning to take care of myself, and that I can't go and climb a mountain. So these two lovely men that I've met, who were climbing mountains and cycling 50 miles a day, there's no way that I'm joining them in that sort of activity, as much as I would love to, and sort of looking at the mountains and the possibilities for walking and wild camping and things like that. I would so love to be doing that, but that is not what I am able to do at the moment. And what I am able to do is to walk up some small hills, to wander
Where did you go?
along beaches, and to think just how much effort it takes to do the basic
I
things
lost
of
you
living.
there for a little while, but now you're back.
Yeah, noticing the amount of effort it takes to live in a van, that I have to think about where I'm going to park it to sleep. I have to work out where I'm going to get water and fuel and emptying the toilet, and then I need to decide whether I put the roof up, and quite often I haven't been able to because it's been too windy, or it's not somewhere that it's appropriate to put it up. So it's then juggling the downstairs space, which is tiny, for me and a dog. And how do we do that? And then cooking and making sure that I eat really well, because I know that I feel better when I eat well with lots of vegetables, and the effort of preparing proper food and vegetables in a tiny space is not the same as having a kitchen where everything is easily to hand and you stick all your stuff in the dishwasher. So and I've found just sort of being mindful about preparing vegetables and then about washing up, and it just feels like a different relationship with life, and to be appreciating just the simple things, and wondering where all the time goes, and that I haven't been engaging with things online. And yeah, it just feels so different, and so, I don't know, so rich in a very different way to being in one place and being fed by connections online, which is what most of the last 18 months have been. Yeah, so it feels there's sort of an adjustment going on between real life connections with strangers that I bump into and have a conversation and don't see again. So this thing of bumping into people again, that was just like, that just hasn't happened. I haven't seen the same person twice. And having on some online connection, but I had over a week without any Zoom calls, which was the longest I've gone without Zoom calls in 2 years. And it was fine.
Yeah. Oh, it is so interesting, this. It connects to so much of what I've been speaking with both Beverly and Micah in the past pod recordings or conversations, where this aspect of what's the ingredients in my life? You know, which of these ingredients nourish me, which don't? Which one do I really like the flavor of? Which don't I? And, you know, how can I, like you say, the choice is yours. What can I do? How can I make my life, the container of my life, in such a way that what happens in it is to as large an extent as it's possible, that which I want to have there, you know, playing with that stuff. But also, me and Micah spoke about the difference of being in relationship to something, or in relationship with something, or in relationship in something. And what you speak about, it sounds as if you're in relationship with your life. You're in it. It's not I need to plan this, which is much more of this. There's a distance there, but you're like, I'm in it. Here I am. You know, where do I go today? And it's been interesting because my week has been so full. I've had a week of meetings both on Zoom and physical, and dance lesson, and biking here and there, and you know, working. And it's like I woke up this morning with a headache, and I very, very seldom nowadays get a headache. Like, really, not often at all. And it was just one of those ding, 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 ding bells saying, I think you've said yes to a little bit too many things this week. And he's like, yeah, I have. Because I haven't checked in to mind, body, emotion, and spirit. I haven't honored me. Where am I? What do I need? What would nourish me now? What would serve me now? What wants to happen now? So it's fun to kind of be in conversation with you where you're in this. I went a week without any Zoom calls. It's like, oh my God, yeah, please. Because I'm getting all zoomed out, which doesn't mean I don't want to have Zoom calls. It just means I need to be mindful of with whom and when and how and for how long and how many in a day, you know, and where do I pick up the nourishment I need. I do that in some Zoom calls, not all, you know. So yeah.
Sorry, I've just been distracted by a load of half-naked men.
You need to turn on the camera.
There's two, well, a van and a car full of surfers. There's about 5 of them, and they've been waxing their surfboards and sort of, yeah, half dressed in their wetsuits. Yeah, sorry.
Don't say sorry.
Yeah. They've got a long walk to get to the water.
Yeah. And you have to, you can't get closer to the water?
No, it's across a whole load of sand dunes and and then there's a young couple who look like they're going to go camping. They've been gathering all their stuff. It's been taking them. They've been fiddling around the whole of our conversation, and they're just about to leave and go and find somewhere to pitch their tent. By the look of it, maybe down in the dunes. It's all happening here.
It is.
And I'm trying to eye up a level pitch, because at the moment I'm on quite a wonky angle, which won't work for sleeping. The car park is emptying.
So you need to find a better spot?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, last conversation you and me had, I think, you spoke about this slow road to and in Scotland. And it sounds as if that's what you've been doing, been exploring.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely been slow, and interestingly, the book that I had has been a disappointment. It was a really nice thing to have when I was still in the sort of dreaming. It's like, yes, I want to go to Scotland in my camper van, and then to read this book, it's like, oh yes, I can do this. And there's all these there's about 25 routes in it, just different bits of Scotland. But having got to Scotland, it's useless, really. There's no detail. There's just sort of waffle. The maps are not accurate. And then there's another book that I've got, that I've downloaded, an ebook that has much more detail of the North Coast 500 and lots of sort of routes off it. But what I've noticed is that I'm more interested in reading when I've been somewhere. So I'll read the chapter on the bit that I've just done.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's what that was. And I'm not. Yeah, maybe it comes back to the not a tourist thing, that I don't want to read it and go, oh yes, I must go there. Instead, I sort of naturally meander, and then I'm interested in reading about what it is that I saw, and I don't have any regrets of, oh, I missed that place, and I'm constantly making choices when I'm driving along, because there's lots of roads off roads, and sometimes I turn left, sometimes I turn right, and I just see where I go, and there isn't. Yeah, it's interesting. There's no judgment or regret going on, because I am just. I'm in the moment. It's like, in this moment I choose this, in this moment I choose that, and the tourist thing, I think maybe that's my judgment of the people in motorhomes, is that they are tourists. Like, if you're in a big white motorhome, you're a tourist, and you have an itinerary, and you're ticking off, and you want to tick off the North Coast 500, and I'm not bothered whether I'm doing the North Coast 500 or not. I'm enjoying the north of Scotland, and then there's this sort of rebel thing. It's like, well, if you're doing that, I'm not. I don't want to be. I don't want to be
But what
like
if they
everybody.
aren't?
what are they doing in a great white box driving around? Why are they driving?
Perhaps because they want more comfort than you have available in your tinier van. There's 2 people. They need a bigger van. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's like, why? Maybe they're doing precisely what you're doing. Don't have a clue where they will be camping and, tonight. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. And I have spoken to some of them, but not many of them. But yeah, and it's sort of interesting, the groupings. And there was a campsite that I was at last week where there was a whole group of sports car owners they were camping, but they were Porsches and all sorts of things with numbers on the side that they were doing some sort of rally, like how fast can we go round the North Coast 500, and then there were loads of motorbikes and cyclists, and it is, I don't know, there's this sort of human need to connect with and to identify as part of a group. And that's something that I feel allergic to being, like, even other women with camper vans. There's a Facebook group that I'm in that has, I don't know, thousands and thousands of women with camper vans in this Facebook group. And occasionally I have a look, and there's been a post about who's in Scotland, and there's all these people in Scotland. Oh, we must meet up. And my response internally is, no, don't want to. And yeah, it's like I just want to be me. I don't want to. I don't know. I don't need to be part of a group of people who share an identity of some sort. And there's this thing that VW camper van people wave at each other, and it makes me mad. It's like, I'm not one of you. I am not going to
You
wave at you.
are one of them. You have one.
But it's like, why? I suppose it's some sort of collective, maybe. Yeah, it taps into my my thing about inclusivity, and by identifying as part of a VW camper van club, it's sort of exclusive, and it's like, oh yes, we're part of that club. And yeah, I don't want to be in a club that wants me as a member. That whatever that whose quote is that?
Groucho Marx.
Yeah.
But I wonder at that. I wonder how true it is. I wonder at where the fuel for the judgments that kind of pop up there comes from, because I'm guessing there are other places or communities or groups or labels that you're not as allergic to. I mean, you're a part of people who've taken akimbo workshops, and you've taken more than one. So it's like, not that you necessarily have to go, hi, I'm one of these, label on the chest, but I'm guessing there are other groupings that doesn't have hives break out on your skin, or
Yeah, I'd have to give that more pondering. And yeah, what are the qualities of groups I I want to belong to and identify with. And maybe I was thinking about the akimbo thing compared to the VW thing. It's about being seen for who I am.
Mm.
Whereas the VW thing is about a possession. Doesn't matter who's in it, who's driving it. It's I have this thing. Whereas, my akimbo experience is about, in akimbo, I am seen and I see other people for who they show up as, not about their status or their role or their wealth or their anything else. It's
and I mean it's I can look around me and I can see that I can identify also with kind of external aspects. It's like I have a lot of used furniture. There's not the sofa we bought new some 15 years ago, but it's like that's almost the little table that I have for the floor. I also bought new just this year, but it's like otherwise, if I look around me, there's not a piece of furniture in here that is new, right? So I identify with that, and I'm not one of those people who wants to toss it out and bring new stuff in. It's like, no, I'm not. And I can be judgmental towards that. I can have that type of feeling to it, but at the same time, it's me, I choose what I choose. Everybody else makes other choices. And I've worked hard at ditching my inner judge, which also kind of automatically have led to a ditching of the outer judge, of the judge of what's external to me. It's like, I still think I do things better than some other people, right? But I'm at least aware that I'm thinking it and try not to give it too much weight, too much meaning, too much truth. It's like, it's an opinion.
Yeah.
Because it is an opinion. And I try to not believe too much in them. I don't know. Or take them at their, take them too seriously. And it makes it easier to kind of just shrug my shoulders and go, okay, other people's make other choices.
Yeah, because it's interesting having just realised in talking about it that the VW thing is about an object, and I hadn't appreciated that before. I was there was this irritation that they thought I was like them, and
which is your thought.
Now I know that. Oh, I don't want to be associated with the ownership of an object.
No.
So, yeah, I might wave at people now, like, hi, nice to see you. But there was this, sort of almost unconscious reaction to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Whereas now I have a sort of understanding of what was prompting my reaction.
Yeah.
Quite aware. Okay, that's what's going on. That's fine. I don't need to react. I can just accept.
Precisely,
Like,
which again
yeah,
opens up
yep.
that place of choice again.
Yes. Yes, so by understanding and identifying what it is we're reacting to, we can make a choice. But if we're unconscious and unaware of what we're doing, because so often we are, and even the sort of the idea of wild camping and the fear that's been instilled in me by all these outside ideas, it was only it was when a friend said, well, she assumed that I always wild camped, and I said I never have, and that she had been, and she said, oh yeah, she was anxious to start with, but after a few days it was fine, and then yeah, that's interesting because it's like, yeah, I want to be like her. So there are people that I want to be like.
Yep.
Yeah. And it is so the inner choice. I choose to not be afraid. I choose to embrace the possibility of staying in a remote, isolated spot and enjoying the magnificence of nature. And what a choice.
What a choice. Yeah.
That I could run away from and miss out on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because when I think of the experiences I've had, because I've dealt with that fear, it's like, no, thank you. Be quiet now. We're doing this.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me happy. Alison, this is our 5th official pod recording, and therefore it's the final pod recording of this series.
Oh.
Yeah. And you and I, we've been having more than 5 non-recorded since we started recording. So we definitely will. I'm hoping you won't chuck me out when you do your inventory of what Zoom calls to keep in your life. But I wanted to ask you if you have any reflections on this. I mean, we had our 3rd conversation was started out on on how uncomfortable you were with putting yourself out there in this way. But I'm curious if there's
that one.
any other, that one, which is one of my favorite. It's episode 14, one of my favorites of all of these. I wonder, do you have any reflections? What have you liked? What haven't you liked? Has anything shifted? Yeah.
It's I suppose that over time I've become more comfortable with the idea that it's being recorded and that there's the possibility that someone's listening. And yeah, if you are, I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, and I suppose sort of surprised that people would listen. And curious about who listens and what they're doing when they're listening, because it's a long conversation. They're all long conversations that you have. So it's quite quite a commitment
Mm.
to listen to. And it's interesting sort of with doing different things and being out and about. And I know when I was in Wales and I was doing lots of gardening, that podcasts were a really good thing to listen to when you're doing manual stuff or walking or things like that. But then, yeah, I'm just curious about who the listener is.
Mm.
That's my
Which is, it's fun. I have a new friend who said, "Oh, I almost finished listening to the latest episode, which was episode 22 with me and Beverly." And he said, and he gave me permission to quote him. He said, "I really enjoyed it. I had a couple of moments where I wanted to hop in with a comment, which is a very good sign." And I just went, "Oh, that makes me so happy," because I have that sense when I listen to them, because I do listen to them. It's like, this, "Oh, no, this," or, "Oh, yeah, that's really good," wanting to join in somehow. So I think that the realness of these conversations is what attracts people.
Because I think that would be my frustration. Is that I don't want to be listening to this conversation. I want to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah, and it's like I kind of am. I kind of am a part of the conversation, even though, when I listen to other conversation pods and not my own, because I am very much a part of this one, but I don't feel excluded. I feel included when I listen to people having real conversations. There's an hand reached out there somehow, which I can actually, this is interesting. I was listening to Dan Rather interviewing Walter Isaacson on CRISPR, which is the mRNA, DNA, whatever enzyme that bacteria has, or whatever it is that can cut up genes that some Jennifer Loudon, or whatever her name was, got a Nobel Prize for, and which has now been used in the COVID vaccines. But that was an interview. That makes me frustrated. So I can get frustrated at that type, because it's like asking a question and then it's not opening up these, because it's like, okay, no, here's the question, here's the answer, here's the question, here's the answer, here's the question, here's the answer, which just make me go, ugh. It's like, I have a hard time listening to that type of thing. There are interviewers who can do it really, really well, but that episode, it was just short at 25 minutes or something. It was like, ugh, no.
Ooh, Murdoch's woken up now.
Oh, he says, time to go for a wee.
Saying, time to go outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I must go. But
you do, and thank you. And we will talk on Sunday.
We will, yes. I shall make sure I am somewhere connected.
Yes.
Which I feel I've moved away from the remoteness of the Highlands. So it'll be easier to find connection from now on.
Good. Well, that was Murdoch saying.
That was Murdoch saying time to move.
Yep, and he's right. Thank you, my friend.
Right, I will speak to you on Sunday.
You will.
Enjoy your evening.
I will. Bye.
Bye.